Welcome everyone to this walkthrough session. Thank you for joining. Today, Denise will be showing you how to utilize some of the new features on Ingenuity 7. These will include advanced virtual calculations, tabular data grids, and how to use the widget table.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so for the agenda for today, we have the advanced calculations as part 1. So let's get started with that. Here I am in my own space, and then I created a regular dashboard. Just click here and then add a dashboard, and I just named it with today's date. Then I'm going to click on edit to change to edit mode, and let's add a chart. So we just drag and drop it. And here on the right side menu, we're going to see how to configure this widget that we just added to the grid. Okay, so here under data sources, we have the source, and here you can click on this magnifying glass icon to open up the search or the calculation engine as well. And here we can start looking for a tag. So here we will get a drop down with all the options that we have. And you can also add filters to it because sometimes we have too many options and it's an endless scroll down. So if we need to, we can add filters to that. So for now, we're just going to add this tag, and then we can see it here on the chart. We can change colors here to whatever we wish. Let's put it maybe on this green. And okay, so if we get out of edit mode, we can hover over and then we can see the value that we are getting from this particular tag over time. We are gonna add another item. Right now, we are gonna have the case in which this tag that we added is in standard cubic meter per hour, and this will be our liquid rate. So we wish to have this instead in barrels per hour. So then what we're gonna do is we have this tag. We're going to add another item to this same chart so that we can see it next to each other. We're going to click on calculation. And then here we're going to get the multiplication from the mathematical category in the calculation engine. Here we can add the tag that we had, and we are going to add another one here that is going to be 6.29, if I'm not mistaken, to change units. And we're going to make sure that this use as final output is selected. And here we can see a preview of what we are calculating. So then we're going to click save. And now we have the other chart. So this is the original, and this second one is the one that we multiplied to be in the correct units that we want. We had, I believe, one client that had the issue in which the rate was registered in CET, but they were in the UK, for example, and then there's a time shift, a mismatch between times. So what they registered to be at 4 p.m. was the value that they had at 3 p.m. because it was in a different time zone. So if that happens to you, what you can do is add another item here. And with this same calculation that we did, we can just get the calculation and then just go to the calculation engine again. And for the time shift, we go to series conditioning and we select time shift or shift in time. Here we can put an individual tag, or we can put a calculations, as we're going to do in this case. And then we're going to put a time shift of -1 hour, meaning that what we are seeing, we're gonna have like a 1 hour delay on the original tag, let's say. So let's gonna refresh and save. Now that we click refresh, if we put a calculation here, it will automatically, make the whole calculation that you copied in here so that you can see it. Check that this is saved as final output, and then we can click on save. And then we have our time shift. Enable live mode so that we get the latest values. Here on the top, we can change the time period that we're seeing. And if this live mode toggle is on, it means that we're seeing the live data basically. So while this is on, we can go here and select from the drop-down menu. And if you're not seeing the option that you are needing in this drop-down menu, you can put, for example, 5 days, but we don't have it here. So then you would put 5D, and then that gives you 5 days worth of the data. And you can hide this away if you need to, if you want a more sleek kind of chart. So that is for the time zone. And If we go back to the calculation for this, we can see that this is getting a bit of a long calculation, and we might not want to do this every time that we're going to use this liquid rate. So then what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, the last calculation. Let's save these changes that we've made. We're going to go on menu, then we're going to go to tag aliases. We're going to create a new tag alias. Here we can put our calculation. If you need to search for a tag, you can also click on the magnifying glass and you open the same search window as before. We're going to put a tag alias and we're going to call this liquid rate. Liquid rate barrels per hour UK time, let's say. Yeah, let's put this. Let's put this in the description actually, so that is not so long. Per hour. Then add. We can continue without the alias. We just have to copy the tag or the calculation that we've made with the multiplication to get it to the correct unit, and with the time zone shift. Another thing that we can do is use the totalizer to show or to totalize tags and calculations, for example, per day, per month, or per quarter as we need to. So we are going to add another chart and we're going to put the calculations that we just made. Oh, yeah, this color is fine. And then what we're going to do is here in the legend, we can change other qualities of our trends. For example, colors. We can change if it's a dotted line, dashed, or the thickness of the line as well. And we can also, for example, add a nickname to this. We can totalized liquid rate. And we're gonna add, and this is gonna be per day. We go here to the magnifying glass. It opens up in the calculation. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go under totalizers and then totalize points. And we're gonna connect our previous calculation to the totalizer. We're gonna select this as the new one. And here we're gonna select the window size in which we want to totalize, for example, day, month, quarter. We said we were gonna totalize per day, and here the window offset or anchor, for example, begin day, and then the data rate. The data rate is, for example, in this case, it's 1 hour because it was an hourly rate. So then we can see a preview of the trend, how it would look like. We make sure it's selected as the last or the final output, and then we click save. And then we can see how it is. It will be incrementing throughout the day, and then as the day ends, it will go to 0 at the beginning of the day and go on again. We are now seeing it as a line in the chart type, but we can see it as a bar, for example. And then we just group by day, last, and middle. So then now we have a bar, just totalizing this calculation per day. And we can do the same for months or quarters or yearly rates as we need to. And next, we are going to cover the data table. Yeah, that's the next topic. So we're going to go, let's just save our changes. Then we're going to go to edit mode. Let's move this a little bit higher. And we're going to add a data table from the menu. Set it here. Let's adjust the size a little. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay, as we can see here, there's two different table options, the data table and the widget table. We're gonna cover the two of them in this session. So the data tables are ideal for displaying information from one data source and is mostly data that is text, number, dates, etc. And in this example, we're just gonna set up a data table with information from our Flight Radar API. So we add it to the grid. We go to the source on the top. Here we see the different options that we have for sources, and we're just gonna select Fly Radar 24. And then here we can see that we're going to need a code for the airport that we're going to look into this example. So we can add OSL for the Oslo airport. And under limit, this would be the amount of sort of rows that we're going to be seeing. So we can set that maybe to 5 would be okay. And then we're going to go to columns, and then we're going to add a column. And then here in the name, it's completely up to you what you want to name each column, of course. And under primary output, you can see all the different options that this particular API gives you to show. So these are gonna change depending on the API that you're adding. In this case, we have this option. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select arrival airline. This we're gonna name the column airline. Column width, we can leave the column width as is for now. And here we're gonna select what type of data we are showing. In this case, it is text, but we can also put a number or a date. So we're gonna leave that as text for now. And we're gonna add another column that is gonna be light. And we're gonna select the arrival flight number. Okay, this is also text. We're gonna add another column, and this one is gonna be the departure destination name to know where it's from. Then we're just gonna put from as the column name. And we're gonna add one more column to our table, and this is gonna be the status of the flight. Status of the flight, and this would be arrival status word. Okay. So if we go out of edit mode, then we can see our little table. And then here we have the airline, the flight code, where is it flying from, and the status if it has landed or not yet. So here we can also edit. We can toggle on the edit mode and we can add another column right from here. But we can also rearrange the columns. It happens that sometimes you make the columns and you later on want to change the order of the columns. So you can just drag them like that and change the order in the original order we made it. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to edit mode and we are going to add a highlight under columns. We're going to go to our last column, which is status. And here there is a highlighting option and we're going to add a static criteria. So here we're gonna look for landed. If the text is landed or if the text is equal to landed, then we're gonna change the color to green. And we're gonna add another criteria. And if the text is equal to delayed, then we're gonna change to maybe like an orange. And we can select if we just want to highlight this cell or if we would like to highlight the entire row based on the status in this case. So we can leave it as just highlighting that cell. It shows a bit better the data that we have here, like an indicator would. Okay, so that is the example for the data tables. Another thing for the data tables with this highlighting is that the static criteria that we add is a case sensitive. So we will have to make sure that we have the correct spelling and also the same if it's in lowercase or uppercase or a mix between both. We have to make sure that it's the same. If not, it's not going to pick up on it. So we just have to be sure that we have the correct spelling on the criteria. The next case is going to be a widget table. We're just going to move this forward. We just add a widget table onto the grid, same as before. We're going to resize it a little bit. More, yeah, think that should be good. Okay, so the difference between a widget table and a data table is that a widget table can also show other type of widgets, as the name suggests. So in the data table, we have text and number and dates. But in the widget table, we can add, for example, indicators, spark lines, levels, within the same table. So then it's super dynamic and it adjusts to whatever your needs are. And another thing is that a widget table can also have two different sources, whereas with the data table, it's just one data source. So if you ever need to connect two or more data sources within a table, the widget table would be the table of choice. So we added the widget table, and in this example, we're going to set up a chemical dosage table. So we are going to add 5 columns. Same, we go on the right side, columns, we add columns, and we are going to name this one chemical. This is going to be a text, so we leave as it is. You can select a background color if you wish. I'm just going to leave it without any background color. And here we can see the column that we just made, chemical, and then the next one is going to be flowing. And this is going to be an indicator. So we just select from the type under the drop-down menu, and we select the indicator type. We can add another column, maybe dosage rate. And this is going to be a number. We are going to add another one that is going to be without a title or a name, but this is going to be a sparkline. So we just select sparkline from the options. And one last column, which would be tank level. So how much of this chemical we still have in the tanks. And this is going to be a level. So we just add them as this. Okay. Now we can go under rows. And here we have all the columns that we previously made. So this would be row 1, column 1, and then here we'll have the text editor because we said that that column would have text. Once that we have a row, the columns set and at least one row set, then when we toggle on the edit mode, we can click on each individual cell and just edit that particular cell. Then this one, we're gonna put a random one and it's equal to more than 50. Put in green. Dosage rate, we can add a random number. Same one for this. An item. Then we can see it in the sparkline. And then in the tank level, add an item. Same here, we can look for a different tag. And we're gonna put it in blue. Format bars. And then we're gonna select the layout horizontal. And format value, show value. So that one is just one. Looks better and vertical. Okay. Let's save. And so on, we can add more rows to this table. Since each of them are sort of separate, then that's why we can also add different data sources to each of them. So that comes quite in handy. I believe one of the clients needed to see pi data and mecon data in the same table instead of having two different tables on the side. So then this is one way to do this. And you can also change the order of the rows that you put in. So this we can make localant. Same with the tag. Let's put one. More than one. Gonna be green. Go dosage. And then we can add all the individual cells that we want to this table. And you can also add rows and columns straight from this little edit toggle that you have here. So I'm just gonna finish this one for these sparklines. And then tank level, we're gonna add another. Show value. Let's just save it. Then we can resize it to a better scale.
To summarize on the widget table, basically each column is of a particular type of widget. So it can be a number, text, indicator, etc. But then you have the possibility of attaching a separate tag from a separate data source to every individual cell, basically.
Yeah. So in this one, and it also keeps track of what you had put in the same sort of row. So if you want to switch rows for whatever reason, you can just change them from different order. If you were doing this separately, widget by widget, then you would have to keep track of which one was in which order, and it would have been harder to keep track with individual widgets rather
Exactly.
than with the table widget.
Exactly. It keeps the integrity of the row.
Keeps integrity of the row, but gives you flexibility to have different data sources or different widgets such as indicators, tank levels, etc.
Exactly. As opposed to the data table, which is tied to a single data source and whatever that data can offer. So widget table offers a lot more flexibility, is what I'm saying. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, Denise. I guess you can change the font size on those texts, I suppose. For my taste, they're a little small.
Yeah, you can change them. You can also make them in bold, for example, just to have them and change the size as well. Yeah. Toggle the edit mode on the table that we wish to change. In this case, it was this widget table. This was the original and this was the one that I just changed now. So we're just clicking on the one that we want to change. And here we're gonna just select it like this, and then we're gonna change the size from here. We can also change if it's centered in the middle or etc. We can also put bold, italics, and we can also use hyperlinks, which is very handy to link to other pages, etc. So that's, and here we can see immediately how it would look like with regular or with bold. So yeah, you can definitely do that. So these were the topics for today's session. You can give us questions or suggestions for the next topics if there is a widget that or a functionality that you wish to know more about. We have this usually once a month and we keep the recordings and we upload them later on so that you can rewatch them later if you need to.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Denise. That was really informative. As Denise said, if you've got any other questions or topics you'd like us to cover in our future sessions, then please do let us know and look out for our next invite.